things about the place where we're doing retreat is that it's very quiet. And, you live down the road, so you might not remember. It's like, I live in the middle of a very busy city, and I live right by the main train line across Canada, like it's across the street, and a fire station down the road, and cars are whirring by. And so when I'm home, it's like constant noise. And I do a lot of sound meditation. And being here, it's like there's almost no cars. It's hardly any planes. There's no trains. And what are we left? There's still sounds, but it's like the sounds of birds, the sounds of frogs, the sound of the wind. And, when we're talking about silence, of course, it's not silent even here, but what we hear is nature. And I think that that's a really, really valuable part of finding somewhere that connects us with nature. And even as we're sitting in this hall, we can be constantly reminded of being in the world through the sounds that are so nourishing and lovely. So noise pollution, of course, we can practice with noise pollution, but actually it has it's not very good for us. Like the constant traffic noise and car noise and fire sirens. And I was doing a little research on this, getting the talk, and there's actually quite a bit of research now that shows that when we're in environments that are very loud, we release stress hormone, like our body is kind of under attack. and it has negative effects on our heart system, our digestive system. And of course, there's some of that we can't avoid. We live in the city. But when we do have an opportunity to go somewhere quiet, I think instinctually we know that there's a way that our bodies kind of like calm. But there's also research to support that it's very supportive for our stress levels to go down when it's quiet. One thing that really shocked me, they said 2/3 of Europeans and 97% of Americans, like from the US, live with noise pollution, like a very high, some level of like car traffic and sounds. And so we're really in a very fortunate opportunity to be somewhere quiet. And when you are at home or thinking about doing retreat, it can be something to think about in terms of where to go, is trying to find somewhere out in nature. Mingyur Rinpoche talks a lot about camping. But if you can, it's wonderful. And if you can't, it's okay. We do retreat where we can. But it's a wonderful thing. So one thing I wanted to say too about the sound, outer sound, is that a lot of our challenge when we come on retreat from a lot of us is that things are always like moving fast, and we have a lot of like busyness and the sense of needing to get things done. And for me, when I hear the cars outside my condo, when I'm sitting, it's kind of this constant reminder of like busyness. I'm like, oh, people are going to work and people are, I don't know, like, and when I'm in somewhere quiet, it's sort of like, it helps me let that go a little bit. Like nature isn't busy. It's sort of, you're getting things done in its own way, but like there's a real sense of, yeah, just going with natural pace, and like things will happen in their own time and I'm okay. I can relax. So those are all things that came to me with the environment. So the next level of retreat has to do with our inner retreat, which is our speech and our body. And so when we talk about going on silent retreat, often that's what we talk about, is that we're not talking, speaking. This is really, I think the main benefit of not talking is that it helps us to turn inward, which is really like the key point of what we're doing on retreat. Normally our awareness is always outward. And when we come on retreat, it's this opportunity to turn inward and be with ourselves and stop reaching out for things to fill our dissatisfaction, and to just be with ourselves and bring awareness to our experience. So when you go on solitary retreat, you don't really have to worry about being silent because it just happens naturally. Unless you're like Tom Hanks and Castaway and make yourself a friend with a volleyball and start conversing with him, you're fine. Like speech, the silence of your speech happens on its own. But when we're together, we have to choose collectively to be in silence. And you know, today our group has been holding it so beautifully and naturally. And it's such a practice actually of generosity to each other when we practice silence together. I really feel like everyone is supporting me, we're supporting each other. And I think silence really helps with harmony of the group. There's a way in which we kind of pay attention to each other in a very kind of learn to sense each other's body movements and feel each other in a different way and move through the space. There's a gentleness that kind of happens as we move into silence, and it's just it's beautiful to see how it very naturally happens when we're in group in silence, I think. So with silence, of course, different communities hold it differently, and we talked a little bit about this last night. And I think it's always about not too tight and not too loose. And so too tight is like, I'm like walking around and I can't look at you, and like everything gets a little claustrophobic. And I think that kind of silence can be a little too oppressive. And then too loose, it's like people whispering and you can hear people talking in the corners. And, you know, luckily we haven't had really any issue with that. But I'm sure some of you have done a lot of group retreats. You've been on silent retreats that were not very silent, because everyone's talking and having conversations here and there. And it's a little too loose. So we're always finding this balance. And I think in this Teragard tradition in particular, there's a real emphasis on being natural, and kind of takes care of a lot of things when we just be ourselves, but quiet. And so with our body, we can also be quiet. And in one of the retreats this week, someone asked when we were going into silence, so do I have to do everything like also very quiet? Like if I'm doing my dishes, does it ever all have to be silent? And someone else in the group just said, you know, don't worry, it will take care of itself. And I think that's true. Like when we're in silence, naturally, we just don't clang around and bash the dishes because you notice it so much more. Your awareness is tuned, and awareness with awareness, we naturally, I think, find the way to to hold our bodies also. So silence helps with that. I think the way that we move and conduct ourselves, and you sort of tune in. So a lot of people have questions about reading and watching teachings during retreat. And I think silence kind of is one of the places where this question can come up, because if we're in silence, but we're reading a book, are we sort of having a conversation with the book? And so with this, I think, again, different traditions hold it differently. Like in the Zen tradition, for example, during silent retreat, we were not allowed to read anything or write at all. It was like very strict. And here in Tergar, we're a little more like loose with it. And like if you want to read and connect with some kind of teaching, like a Dharma book, not like a sort of fantasy book or like something totally entertainment. Sometimes it can be helpful, and especially if you're on solitary retreat for a long time, having some teachings that you connect with can be very, very supportive. I know for me, like when I did long retreats, like, over several months, having some Dharma teachings really, really supported me, nourished me, and kind of inspired me, kept me going. And so I think we just have to kind of investigate it always, like, is this helping or this not helping? And in terms of books on retreat, one thing that Tenzin Palmo kind of encouraged me to do when I went on retreat was read the spiritual biographies of great meditators. So those are called, in Tibetan, they're called namtars. And they're like stories of great meditators. And sometimes if you're on a long retreat, reading about great meditators and can be very inspiring and helpful. So if you're looking for reading on your long retreat, you might want to try that. Mhm. And I think with this and sort of anything, especially when we're in solitary retreat, but also when we're in group retreat, is really trusting yourself and your own practice. And sometimes I think when we're on retreat, compared to being in like a workshop setting, for example, like last week we were on retreat, but we were doing a Joy of Living workshops. There's a lot of opportunity to ask questions and talk. And here we're sort of left more to ourselves. And a question comes up, and there can be this natural yearning to like find the answer. Like, well, maybe if I look on Joy of Living online course, video X, I'll find the answer to this question. Or maybe I need to ask. And of course, Kelly and I love getting questions, but it can be so valuable when you have a question to be left with yourself and the question, and to just bring it to your practice and see. And sometimes even writing it out so that it becomes kind of like visual, like, okay, that's my question. And even in writing it, you might go, it's like this. But when you bring a question to your own practice and have an opportunity to discover the answer for yourself, there's nothing that replaces that, because someone like Kel or I can tell you the answer, and it's never the same as when you've discovered it in your own experience. No one can take that away from you. So I think that's one of the real values of retreat, is like this opportunity really to take the teachings from like conceptual to your own experience. And one of the main ways we do that is through discovering, oh, is it like this? Is it like that? Maybe if I try this, oh yeah, that worked, or oh, that made it worse. Like we're learning how to do this. And you know, sort of like surfing. You can read books about surfing, can learn about surfing, you can watch someone else surfing, but until you get up on the board and fall off 1,000 different ways and learn how to hold your body and your mind and focus, uh, there's kind of, that's the only way to learn, is really to do it. And so the final level of retreat boundaries is the secret retreat, which is in our own minds. And I think this one, silence in our minds, is probably the trickiest, hardest one of these to talk about, because I think it's one of our, I don't know, I think it's not just me, but many of us, there's this misconception that it's very hard to let go of, that what I'm looking for in practice is quiet in my mind. I want it to be silent. And we're kind of yearning for this inner silence. And of course, what happens when we come on retreat, most of the time we sit down and it's like blah, 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 music, and thinking and feelings and all kinds of stuff, right? And we think, oh no, I'm doing it wrong. I came here for quiet, and instead I've discovered like a one-man band that is my brain. And of course, that's great. That's a good sign. And there's one Tibetan metaphor about this that's a bit inappropriate, but really, really helpful for me. So I'm going to share it, which is about dung on a wall. And so Mingyur Rinpoche tells this story, and it's always really helped me, which is in Tibet, they use cow dung and yak dung for heating their house. And so they take the cow patties and they put them on the wall to dry them out. And then they take them off and kind of stack them up. But what's left is poop on the wall. But it's all dry. And so you can see it, but it doesn't stink. And you think, oh, yeah, it's not so bad. And when you then say, okay, well, I want to clean this wall off, the first thing you do is hose it down. And then the smell hits you really bad. And you think, oh my God, it's getting worse. This was a terrible idea to clean this wall. What have I done? But actually, like the getting it wet, and it's the process of cleaning. So it starts to stink, but see, we're cleaning the wall. And so sometimes when we come on retreat, it feels that way. The first couple of days, like, it's getting worse. I don't know, maybe this was a terrible idea. I can't do this. This is really stinky. But it's been really helpful for me in those sort of low moments to know this is actually the process of cleaning. This is the process of learning. This is the process of bringing awareness to more and more of my experience. So another way to think about silence inside is what Mingyur Rinpoche calls horizontal and vertical liberation. So horizontal liberation is when we have these moments of quiet. There's awareness, but there's not a lot of thought or feeling. There's just sort of like a gap. And so it's like you're going along gap. And so that's the horizontal liberation. And those moments of silence are often like we're looking for those. We're looking for the horizontal liberation experience. But there's another kind of liberation, which is vertical liberation. So vertical liberation, the metaphor is like, if you can see the river, you're not in the river. So normally we're in the river of our experience. We're identifying with our thoughts, we're lost in our thoughts and our feelings, and we're kind of going down the torrent of life. As soon as we bring awareness, it's like you're on the side of the river. And the river can be totally tumultuous and over rapids and waterfalls, and can be brown or it can be beautiful, clear river. It doesn't matter because we're watching the river. And so awareness, as soon as we have awareness of our thoughts or feelings, it's what we call vertical liberation. And so knowing that, then we don't have to seek horizontal gap moments, because as long as there's awareness, we're okay. We're actually liberated. And in the long run, vertical liberation is really, really valuable, because we can't live our life in the gap experience. It's not very useful. Go back to work. Like, please work today. I can't. I'm in a gap, a gap moment. And it's like, we can't really function very much in the gap. We need to be able to feel and think and use our conceptual mind for being in the world and doing stuff, helping people and working and being in life. And so by learning to bring awareness to our thoughts, feelings, we're learning to expand and be able to bring awareness to more and more of our experience, and ultimately bring it into our daily life and into each moment. So meditation isn't just something we do on the cushion, but we bring into our life. So the final thing I wanted to say is just that we can really connect when we have these opportunities for retreat and silence. We can connect this with our compassionate motivation and our wisdom. And in this retreat in particular, we have people doing all different kinds of practices. We have people, some are doing Joy of Living 1, some are doing Joy of Living 2, some are doing Joy of Living 3, some are doing their own thing, which is so wonderful. But I think all of us are here with this motivation to benefit ourselves, but also other beings in this world. And so when we have these opportunities of silence, I think it's a great opportunity to also appreciate this moment, appreciate this opportunity, and imagine sort of sending this out to the world. Like, may all beings have this wonderful experience of silence and nature. And in that way, we're not holding on to our retreat experience, but there's a sense of kind of giving away this wonderful experience for all beings. And I think the other thing is really appreciating impermanence. Like, all of us have come here, we've just arrived. I think for us this week, it's easy in a way, because we're just here for such a short time. And we all know that. And even in the middle of a week-long retreat, it can feel like, my God, is this ever going to end? This is going on forever. But somehow we know also that this is a rare and unique opportunity. And remembering that, especially when things are hard, but also when they're good, like allowing things to be wonderful, knowing, oh, this is a good experience, up experience, this will pass, down experience, this will pass. But really appreciating the opportunity we have to practice. And I think having been doing this a long time and like had lots of retreat experience, lots of opportunity for retreat, and then being in the world and having less, I think it's really made me appreciate when I have this opportunity, when we're busy with work and life and dogs and family, and when we can get away. It's good to remember and bring it to mind. Wow, so lucky. And we don't want to squander this opportunity. I'm going to make the most of it. And I'm sore, my back hurts, I feel a little tight, my brain's going crazy, but wow, this is such a rare opportunity. So I'll make the most of it, even if it's just sitting here with that vertical liberation. And then, another hour passes, go for a walk, and you're like, oh, not so bad. It's actually quite nice. So, yeah, that's really what I wanted to share tonight about silence. I hope it's helpful.